Picture this. A temple doesn't just get abandoned, it gets swallowed, completely consumed by the jungle that once surrounded it. In Cambodia's depths, near the tourist hub of Siem Reap, lies Prohm, a haunting relic of spiritual ambition. Giant tree roots surge over stone walls like frozen tidal waves. Vines snake through windows, transforming hallways into green tunnels. Bird calls echo where monks once chanted. Sunlight flickers through leaves, revealing stone-carved faces watching in silence as centuries slip past. Prohm stands apart from every other Angkor temple. While most ruins underwent meticulous restoration, French archaeologists made a deliberate choice: preserve this temple's atmospheric decay, its poetry of collapse. To understand this mystical place, we must rewind nearly 900 years. Originally named Rajavihara, Monastery of the King, Prohm was commissioned in the late 12th century by King Jayavarman VII. This monarch was known equally for military conquests and spiritual devotion. After internal strife and foreign occupation, Jayavarman ushered in a renaissance. As a Mahayana Buddhist, he envisioned his capital as a sacred landscape where temples weren't merely places of worship. They were cosmic centers reflecting divine order on earth. Prohm honored his mother. In its central sanctuary stood Prajnaparamita, goddess of wisdom, carved in her likeness. A god modeled after a mortal mother, an intimate gesture rarely seen in grand imperial monuments, revealing a king's vulnerability within the stone heart of a vast empire. The scale was staggering. According to the temple's foundation's stele, an ancient stone inscription, the complex supported 12,640 people, 18 high priests, 2,740 officials, hundreds of dancers and artisans. Over 3,000 nearby villages sustained the temple's operations. More than 80,000 people were linked to this sanctuary, a living city orbiting a sacred axis. Architecturally, Prohm exemplified the Bayon style. Its stone maze galleries featured tall towers at each corner. The layout followed a symbolic mandala, drawing visitors inward from the outer world into sanctified space. Walls bore bas-reliefs, apsaras, celestial dancers, bodhisattvas, mythological scenes, floral motifs, and possibly depictions of foreign visitors. These weren't mere decorations, they were visual scriptures. Apsaras symbolized heavenly joy, serving as intermediaries between gods and mortals. Every curve, gesture, and carved costume conveyed meaning. For the Khmer people, this wasn't just a worship place, it was an immersive cosmos. But empires fall. Even the most spiritual landscapes aren't immune to time. By the 15th century, the Khmer capital migrated south, drawn by shifting politics and environmental conditions. Prohm was left behind. Unused and unmaintained, it began decaying. Yet the jungle wasn't passive. Spung trees, massive, fast-growing giants, took root on terraces and towers. Their tendrils pierced stone like water finding cracks. For centuries, Prohm vanished beneath foliage and soil. Local legends spoke of cities of gods hidden in jungle depths. Only in the 19th century, when French naturalist Henri Mouhot famously wrote about Angkor, did Western scholars begin mapping these ruins. When the École Française d'Extrême-Orient began conservation in the early 1900s, they faced a choice: restore Prohm to its original form, or preserve its natural overgrowth. They chose preservation. Why? Because Prohm had become something unique, a symbol of eternal struggle between human ambition and natural reclamation, a visual metaphor for time itself. Walking through Prohm today feels like entering a dream. Temperature drops beneath the canopy, light plays tricks, you pass from open courtyards to darkened chambers with sudden quiet. Tree roots form arches and walls like living architecture. Then there's the famous fig root, coiled serpent-like around a central tower doorway. You might recognize this spot from Tomb Raider. But the real treasure is the silence. the sense of reverence gripping you the moment you step inside. There's also an acoustical mystery. Stand in certain corners and your voice echoes softly. In others, it vanishes into stone. Some theorists believe the temple's acoustics were intentional, designed to enhance chanting and spiritual resonance. What does Prohm teach us? That even in ruin, beauty survives. That stories endure long after empires fall. That sometimes what we abandon becomes what the future cherishes most. Next, from jungle-wrapped sanctuaries to churches carved straight into stone, we journey to the Ethiopian highlands. Like and subscribe to continue. Imagine carving an entire cathedral, walls, roof, columns, windows, straight from solid rock. No bricks, no scaffolding, just chisel, hammer, and volcanic stone. In northern Ethiopia's highlands, where cliffs tear into the sky and clouds cling to mountains, lies ancient Lalibela. Here, 11 extraordinary churches weren't built. They were excavated, hewn from Earth's living rock. They were born of crisis. In the late 12th century, Ethiopia's Christian kingdom was isolated. Pilgrimages to Jerusalem, a cornerstone of Ethiopian Orthodox faith, were becoming perilous. In response, a visionary king offered his people an audacious gift, a new Jerusalem sculpted into Ethiopia's red rock highlands. His name was King Lalibela. According to tradition, he received divine visions instructing him to replicate the Holy Land at home, not just symbolically, physically. What's indisputable is what came next, one of the most astonishing religious complexes ever made. Each church was carved top-down from soft volcanic tuff. Workers outlined a stone block by digging trenches up to 40 feet deep. Then they sculpted inward, carving facades, arches, columns, chambers. No bricks, no joins, just precision. The most iconic is Beta Georgis, the Church of St. George. Shaped like a perfect Greek cross, it stands alone in its own trench. From above, it looks like a divine stamp pressed into earth. The 11 churches group into two main clusters, separated by a narrow trench known as the River Jordan. According to legend, pilgrims must cross this symbolic river to move from the living world to the divine. This layout isn't random, it's theological. Worshippers don't just attend services, they reenact a journey. Through darkness and stone, narrow passages and echoing chambers, they move physically and spiritually toward salvation. Every element is symbolic. Dark tunnels represent suffering. Courtyards open to the sky represent resurrection. Subterranean spaces express humility before God. But what truly brings these churches to life is their continuity. Lalibela isn't a relic, it's a living shrine. To this day, it draws pilgrims from across Ethiopia. Some walk for weeks, barefoot, sleeping in caves and fields. Inside, priests chant from parchment manuscripts in Ge'ez, a liturgical language older than Latin. These books, bound in wood and leather, pass through generations. Candles flicker against basalt walls. Many visitors describe a strange sensation walking the tunnels, a sense of being watched, protected. Some say the stones hum softly. Others feel vertigo, as if earth shifts beneath their feet. But how exactly were these churches built? Historical records are scarce. Construction likely began under King Lalibela and continued after his death. Without cranes, without iron rebar, without digital plans, how did they achieve such precision? Theories abound. Some suggest workers came from Egypt. Others point to local stone carving traditions. Legends claim angels worked at night. The truth may blend local skill, foreign influence, spiritual drive, and sheer will. Despite wars, invasions, and natural erosion, the churches have endured. Yet Lalibela's greatest preservation force isn't archaeology. It's the Ethiopian people. Monks still guard its mysteries. Pilgrims still sleep in the shadows of its trenches. In the end, Lalibela is more than a site. It's a spiritual engine, a place where geology and theology merge. where kings once dreamed and millions still believe. Next, from Ethiopia's mountain sanctuaries, we journey to the Roman East, where at Baalbek, massive columns rise into the sky. How do you build something so massive it defies modern machines? And why would an ancient civilization even try? In Lebanon's fertile Bekaa Valley, where snow-tipped mountains loom on either side, stands one of the ancient world's most awe-inspiring and perplexing architectural feats, the Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek. Today it lies in ruins, but its ruins are more impressive than most finished buildings. Let's start at the base. At the temple's heart lies a megalithic platform built from limestone blocks so huge they bend imagination's limits. 3 stones, each weighing around 800 tons, form a row called the Trilithon. Nearby, another block, the stone of the pregnant woman, still sits in the quarry. It weighs over 1,000 tons, more than a fully loaded Boeing 747. Yet these ancient engineers moved them, positioned them, stacked them, with no cranes, no concrete, no modern technology. How? That's still debated. Some propose earth ramps, sledges, or lubricated tracks of wet sand. Others argue for lost engineering techniques. Fringe theorists suggest aliens, but most scholars agree. This resulted from time, muscle, and masterful coordination. Above this platform once stood the Temple of Jupiter, dedicated to the Roman king of gods, yet rooted in older traditions. Its 20-meter Corinthian columns were the empire's tallest. Massive steps led to a courtyard designed to intimidate, overwhelm, and lift worshippers from ordinary existence into something divine. Only 6 columns remain standing today, but they still dominate the skyline. Standing beneath them, you don't feel like you're in ruins. You feel like you're in a myth. But Baalbek's story didn't start with the Romans. Long before legions arrived, this land was sacred to Phoenicians, who worshipped Baal-Hadad, the storm and fertility god. In this place, between mountains, rivers, and stars, people believed the heavens touched earth. The name Baalbek likely means Lord of the Bekaa. Some argue the site's alignment points toward ancient star charts. When Romans annexed the region in the 1st century BCE, they didn't erase this heritage, they built on top of it. Literally, they Romanized the deities. Baal became Jupiter, Astarte became Venus, and Mercury was folded into the local pantheon. Baalbek became Heliopolis, city of the sun, a spiritual capital for the empire's eastern provinces. But it wasn't just religious, it was imperial propaganda in stone. The Temple of Jupiter was meant to show Rome's power over not just land, but the cosmos. Its scale told citizens and foreigners alike. Rome commands the heavens. Worship here wasn't quiet, it was theatrical. Processions, sacrifices, chanted hymns, incense smoke rising skyward. At festivals, crowds filled massive forecourts, watching priests lead oxen up marble staircases to offer them to gods with names older than Rome itself. Baalbek's architectural ensemble expanded over time. The Great Court, adorned with altars, fountains, and ceremonial staircases, served as the gathering place. Stone basins caught sacrificial blood. Niches held statues of lesser deities. Colonnades provided shade for pilgrims who traveled from across the empire to witness Rome's grandest eastern sanctuary. The Temple of Bacchus, slightly smaller but better preserved, featured elaborate friezes depicting the god of wine surrounded by dancing maenads and mythological creatures. Floral motifs and acanthus leaves curl along capitals with such detail that you can still trace the individual petals carved 2,000 years ago. Its doorway stands 13 meters high, tall enough to make any mortal feel insignificant. The Temple of Venus, circular and feminine, celebrated love, fertility, and the mother goddess, a direct echo of the Phoenician Astarte, who had been worshipped here for centuries before Rome arrived. Its unique design, with a scalloped dome and elaborate exterior niches, showed how Roman architecture absorbed and transformed local traditions. Together, they formed a sacred triad, mirroring the heavens and reinforcing Rome's cosmic order. Baalbek was both city and symbol. Pilgrims, merchants, generals, all passed through its gates. Inscriptions found at the site reveal donations from emperors like Antoninus Pius and Caracalla, dedications from provincial governors seeking favor, and prayers from ordinary citizens hoping for divine intervention. Coins minted in Baalbek circulated as far as Greece and Egypt, carrying its iconic sun motif, a nod to its original identity as a solar sanctuary. The priests here weren't just religious figures, they were political power brokers. They controlled vast temple estates, collected taxes, and mediated disputes. In many ways, Baalbek functioned as a state within a state, with its own economy, legal system, and hierarchy. Yet for all its grandeur, Baalbek couldn't escape time. As the empire weakened, so did the temples. A devastating earthquake in 1170 CE toppled many columns. Christian rulers repurposed some structures, carving crosses into pagan reliefs and converting temples into churches. Islamic dynasties built fortifications on top of ruins, using the Temple of Jupiter's courtyard as a defensive citadel. Crusaders used it as a stronghold during their brief occupation. During Ottoman rule, parts of the complex were buried under centuries of debris, forgotten beneath layers of history. Then came rediscovery. In the 19th century, European travelers arrived with sketchbooks and astonishment. Artists like David Roberts captured the ruins in romantic watercolors, depicting columns rising dramatically against mountain backdrops. Early archaeologists chronicled what they called the Acropolis of the East. The ruins' sheer scale didn't just attract curiosity, it provoked obsession. Theories flourished wildly. Were the Phoenicians master masons who possessed knowledge now lost? Did Romans possess hydraulic lifting machines capable of moving 1,000-ton blocks? Some even suggested that Baalbek was built by biblical giants or survivors of Atlantis. The mystery deepened when no one could adequately explain how such massive stones were transported and placed with such precision. In 1898, German archaeologists began the first scientific excavations. Kaiser Wilhelm II personally funded the project, seeing it as an opportunity to demonstrate German archaeological superiority. The team, led by Otto Puchstein, documented foundations, deciphered inscriptions, and stabilized walls. They discovered that the massive platform predated the Roman structures, suggesting that whatever civilization built the foundation did so before Rome even arrived. This revelation sparked even more debate. Had the Romans built upon an earlier Phoenician or even pre-Phoenician structure? Were the massive foundation stones older than anyone had imagined? In 1984, UNESCO declared Baalbek a World Heritage Site, calling it one of the most celebrated sanctuaries of the ancient world. The designation came with both recognition and responsibility, protecting a site that had survived earthquakes, wars, and centuries of neglect. Yet preservation remains a challenge. Baalbek stands in a politically sensitive region. The Lebanese civil war damaged parts of the site. More recently, the Syrian conflict nearby has threatened cultural heritage across the region. Conflict, weather, and limited funding make conservation difficult. Acid rain erodes the soft limestone. Winter freezes crack the stones. Summer heat expands and contracts the blocks, slowly pulling them apart. Still, local experts and international teams continue the work, preserving not just stones, but a story. A story of ambition without limit, of belief scaled to the sky, of cultures colliding not in war, but in worship. Modern engineers have attempted to understand the construction methods. Computer models suggest that the trilithon stones could have been moved using a combination of levers, rollers, and hundreds of workers. But even with these models, the precision remains baffling. The stones fit together so tightly that you cannot slip a knife blade between them. No mortar was needed because the weight and friction hold them in place. Some researchers propose that the builders used a technique called rocking and rolling. slowly shifting the massive blocks back and forth while incrementally moving them forward. Others suggest that the stones were transported on wooden sledges lubricated with animal fat or olive oil. Still others believe that the quarry was much closer than currently thought, and that the stones were moved during winter when the ground was frozen, reducing friction. But perhaps the most important question isn't how, it's why. Why invest such enormous resources into moving stones that weighed more than anything else in the ancient world? Why create a platform so massive that it would dwarf everything built upon it? The answer lies in power and meaning. For the people who built the foundation, whether Phoenician or earlier, these stones were more than construction materials. They were statements of divine connection. To move the immovable was to demonstrate that gods favored your civilization. To build on a scale beyond human comprehension was to create a bridge between earth and heaven. When Romans arrived, they understood this immediately. Rather than demolish the massive platform, they embraced it, building their own temples on top. They recognized that the foundation's impossible scale added to their own power. It suggested that Rome was the inheritor of ancient wisdom, the culmination of all civilizations that came before. Visiting Baalbek today is unforgettable. You walk among giants. Each stone whispers of emperors, priests, builders, and pilgrims. You see remains of a civilization that dared to move mountains, literally. You stand in the great court and imagine it filled with thousands of worshippers, the air thick with incense, and the sound of ritual chanting. You climb the steps to the Temple of Jupiter and feel the weight of history pressing down. You run your hand along the weathered columns and feel the chisel marks left by craftsmen 2 millennia ago. And you're left asking the same questions they once asked. What does it mean to build forever? What are we really worshipping? Gods, or the idea that we can defy time? At Baalbek, the answer seems clear: both. The gods may have been the excuse, but the true worship was directed at human ambition itself. The belief that we can create something so magnificent, so enduring, that it will outlast empires, religions, and even memory. The 6 remaining columns of the Temple of Jupiter still stand as sentinels, watching over a valley that has seen Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, Crusaders, Ottomans, and now modern Lebanese. They have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, yet they remain, weathered, broken, but unbowed. As the sun sets over Baalbek, casting long shadows across the ancient stones, you realize that this place isn't just about the past. It's about the eternal human drive to reach beyond our limitations, to create beauty that transcends our brief existence, to leave something behind that says, we were here, we mattered, we built this. And in that moment, standing among ruins that are more impressive than most modern buildings, you understand why Baalbek continues to captivate us. Because it reminds us that greatness isn't measured in years or decades, it's measured in millennia. Next, from sky-piercing columns, we descend to the sea. Off Malta's coast lie stone temples older than the pyramids, built by unknown hands and abandoned for unknown reasons. Like and subscribe. Before Stonehenge, before the pyramids, before writing, wheels, or empires, there were Malta's temples. Scattered across this Mediterranean island nation are some of the world's oldest freestanding structures. Built over 5,000 years ago, these stone sanctuaries challenge everything we think we know about prehistoric civilization. And perhaps no site is more mysterious or monumental than Ġgantija. Located on the island of Gozo, Ġgantija means place of giants. According to local legend, a giantess built the temple in a single day while carrying her child on her shoulder. It's not hard to see why that myth arose. The temple walls are made of megalithic limestone blocks, some weighing over 50 tons. Yet they were lifted, stacked, and aligned with impressive precision, using no metal tools, no wheels, and no mortar. Archaeologists estimate Ġgantija was built around 3600 BCE. That's 1,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza and 1,500 years before Stonehenge. It predates writing in most parts of the world, and yet here we find sophisticated architectural planning, symbolic design, and ritual complexity. So who built it? That's still unclear. The builders left no known written records, and their language, names, and culture remain a mystery. What we do know comes from the structures themselves and the artifacts left behind. Ġgantija features 2 adjacent temples, each with an oval forecourt leading into a series of apsidal chambers, rounded spaces curving like petals from a central corridor. Some theorists suggest the layout mirrors a mother goddess's body, with chambers representing reproductive organs. Fertility figurines found nearby seem to support this view. The temples likely hosted ceremonial gatherings, possibly related to seasonal cycles, harvests, or life and death. Excavations have uncovered altars, animal bones, and burnt offerings, evidence of rituals, but no signs of mass habitation. These were sacred spaces, not settlements. But Ġgantija isn't alone. Across the channel on Malta's main island lies another marvel, Ḥaġar Qim. Perched atop a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, Ḥaġar Qim, standing stones, commands one of the island's most dramatic views. It too dates to around 3,600 to 3,200 BCE and is part of a wider temple complex, including the nearby Mnajdra temples. What makes Ḥaġar Qim extraordinary is its astronomical alignment. On the summer solstice, sunlight enters a small hole in the stone facade and illuminates a central altar inside. Other openings mark lunar events. This suggests that the builders had not just engineering skills, but celestial knowledge. Inside the temple, we find massive upright stones, carved doorways, and elliptical chambers. One particularly famous statue, the Venus of Malta, was discovered nearby. It depicts a corpulent female figure, interpreted by some as a fertility goddess, and by others as an abstract representation of life force. The walls at Ḥaġar Qim rise over 6 meters, forming protective enclosures with inner sanctuaries. Some blocks were transported from distant parts of the island. Still others show signs of polishing, pitting, or incised spiral carvings, subtle decorations that speak of symbolism now lost to time. But what happened to the people who built these temples? By around 2500 BCE, the Maltese temple building culture vanished. The reasons remain speculative. Perhaps the environment changed, depleting resources or altering weather patterns. Perhaps disease or conflict played a role. Or perhaps their society simply evolved, leaving behind old traditions and adopting new ones. Whatever the cause, the temples were eventually buried, either by soil, vegetation, or deliberate closure. When rediscovered in the 19th century, they had been slumbering beneath earth for over 4,000 years. Today, Malta's megalithic temples are UNESCO World Heritage Sites and critical to understanding early human spirituality. Because here's the thing, these temples were never tombs. Unlike Egyptian pyramids, they weren't built for kings. There are no golden masks or grand burials. Instead, the emphasis is on ritual space, natural light, and the body's movement through stone. In many ways, they resemble sacred theatres, choreographed for human experience. Walking through Ġgantija or Ḥaġar Qim today, you feel it. The acoustics shift as you pass through chambers. The stone seems to breathe, shadows stretch across altars, just as they did 5 millennia ago. And you wonder, what music filled these spaces? What voices? What beliefs? Modern researchers use 3D scanning and ground-penetrating radar to map unseen parts of the temples. But even with all our tools, the essence remains elusive. Because these aren't just ruins, they're questions carved in stone. Who were these people? Why did they build these massive sanctuaries? And what dreams did they carry beneath those stones? We may never know, but standing among the megaliths, one thing is clear. These ancient builders believed in something larger than themselves, something worth lifting 50-ton blocks to honor, and in that, we're not so different. Next, from Malta's megalithic mysteries, we travel to India, where a chariot carved from rock races toward the rising sun. Imagine a temple that doesn't just honor the sun, but chases it. A stone chariot frozen in time, surging eastward toward the dawn. On India's eastern coast, beside the crashing waves of the Bay of Bengal, lies one of the most ambitious architectural visions of the ancient world, the Sun Temple of Konark. It was built in the 13th century CE by King Narasimhadeva I of the Eastern Ganga dynasty, a powerful ruler whose empire stretched across much of Odisha. But this was no ordinary monument. Narasimhadeva envisioned a cosmic machine, a temple that would embody the divine energy of Surya, the Hindu sun god, in stone, light, and time. And what he created still baffles the modern world. From above, the Sun Temple resembles a giant chariot, drawn by 7 stone horses and mounted on 24 massive wheels, each nearly 3 meters high. These are not decorative flourishes, they are deeply symbolic. The 7 horses represent the days of the week, the 7 colors of visible light, and the 7 chakras of yogic philosophy. The 24 wheels correspond to the hours of the day, with each wheel functioning as a sundial. Yes, this temple tells time. You can literally watch shadows fall across carved spokes and mark the passing of the sun. Even today, scholars marvel at the precision of this celestial instrument, designed not just to house a god, but to move with him. The Sun Temple once stood over 60 meters tall, crowned by a Shikara tower that rivaled the great temples of Khajuraho and Thanjavur. Sadly, that tower collapsed long ago, leaving behind the Jagamohana, or assembly hall, still majestic, still defiant against the sea winds. The temple was constructed with a mix of chlorite, laterite, and condylite stone, materials hauled from quarries 70 kilometers away, over riverbeds, and through forests. And here's the stunning part: no mortar was used. Instead, stones were interlocked with precision joints, metal clamps, and gravity engineering so advanced that even modern restorers struggle to replicate it. But Konark isn't just an engineering marvel, it's a feast of stories. Walk along its weathered walls and you'll see thousands of carvings, mythological battles, royal hunts, dancers mid-spin, and lovers intertwined. Some are erotic, some are poetic, all are alive. These scenes reflect not just devotion, but a celebration of life's totality, its joys, passions, struggles, and sacredness. In Hindu philosophy, karma, desire, is one of the 4 aims of life, alongside dharma, duty, artha, prosperity, and moksha, liberation. Konark doesn't separate the spiritual from the sensual, it unites them. The main deity, Surya, would once have stood inside the sanctum, bathed in the first rays of morning light. Legend says that a magnetic lodestone in the roof aligned the idol perfectly with the rising sun, and may have even kept it suspended in mid-air, a theory impossible to prove but endlessly romantic. But this solar chariot has not been immune to time. By the 16th or 17th century, the temple was already in decline. Local accounts blame a lightning strike, while others suggest invasions or seismic activity. Colonial records describe the Shikara collapsing, and over centuries, sand, salt, and neglect did their damage. By the 19th century, only the Jagamohana stood firm, its roof partially braced by British engineers. In recent decades, conservationists have stepped in. Some carvings were removed for protection, others are crumbling despite modern shelters. Still, Konark endures, weathered, worn, but never defeated. It's more than a ruin. It's a code, written in granite and sunlight. The wheels alone are an astronomical manuscript. Scholars have measured them against celestial alignments, lunar phases, and ancient calendars. The temple's axis points east, but its carvings track both solar and seasonal transitions. In essence, Konark is a giant calendar, where gods walk and time turns in stone. But there's more. Beneath the surface, recent surveys have discovered underground chambers, possibly ritual vaults or storage areas. Acoustic tests hint at resonant frequencies, suggesting the temple may have amplified chants or prayers. As we decode its secrets, we uncover layers of science, spirituality, and symbolism. Culturally, Konark has also become a living site once again. Each year during the Chandrabhaga Mela, pilgrims gather to bathe in the sea at sunrise, reenacting rituals older than the temple itself. The Konark Dance Festival, held in front of the illuminated Jagamohana, brings together classical Indian performers who echo the sculptures frozen in its stone. Through sound and movement, they reconnect Konark with its original purpose, a place of divine energy, rhythm, and art. For modern India, Konark is more than a monument. It's a national symbol. It appears on currency. Its wheel is at the heart of India's national flag, and it remains a subject of pilgrimage, poetry, and politics, a reminder of a civilization that reached for the sun, not with fire or conquest, but with carving chisels and cosmic vision. To stand before the wheels of Konark is to feel time stretch around you. The same sunlight that kissed its stones in the 1200s shines still. The same sky, the same sea, and in the hush between waves, if you listen, you might hear the hooves of stone horses forever galloping toward the dawn. Next, we leave Odisha's Sun Temple and journey west, deep into the basalt cliffs of Maharashtra, where an entire temple was carved down from a mountain. The Kailasa temple at Ellora is waiting. Like and subscribe. What if I told you that one of the greatest temples ever created wasn't assembled brick by brick, but carved downward from the top of a mountain? In the rocky hills of Western India, tucked within a rugged escarpment in Maharashtra, sits the Kailasa temple, a marvel of architecture, ambition, and spiritual vision. Carved from a single monolithic block of volcanic rock, it stands as the centerpiece of the Ellora Caves, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that spans over 2 kilometers and includes 34 cave temples and monasteries. But none are as extraordinary as Cave 16. This is not simply a temple, it is a statement, a colossal expression of devotion to Lord Shiva, and a demonstration of ancient engineering so advanced it leaves modern architects scratching their heads. Unlike most temples that rise from the ground, the Kailasa temple was carved top down. Workers began at the mountain's summit, chiseling downward, removing an estimated 200,000 tons of basalt to shape spires, shrines, courtyards, staircases, and sculpture with impossible precision. There were no cranes, no dynamite, and no fallback. One mistake could ruin years of work. Yet somehow, they executed it flawlessly. The temple is thought to have been commissioned in the 8th century by King Krishna I of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. The Rashtrakutas ruled much of the Indian subcontinent, and Krishna wanted to leave a legacy rivaling even the great dynasties of southern India. What he created did more than rival them, it redefined them. As you enter the complex, you're greeted by a deep trench cut into the mountain, separating the temple from the surrounding rock. The central shrine rises 4 stories, with a towering shikhara, spire, designed to mimic Mount Kailash, the mythical Himalayan abode of Shiva. And beneath it, a ring of carved elephants appears to carry the structure on their backs, an illusion that makes the temple feel both grounded and divine. Bridges carved from stone connect upper galleries to outer walls. Pillars soar upward, hand-chiseled to perfect symmetry. Water channels, stairways, and small shrines are seamlessly integrated, all from the same original stone. And yet, this massive creation was done without blueprints, at least not in the modern sense. No scaffolding, no digital models, just knowledge passed orally, and artisans trained through generations. Some experts believe it took over 20 years of continuous work by thousands of laborers, stonecutters, sculptors, and priests. Every inch of Kailasa tells a story. Walk along its walls, and you'll find epic tales carved in high relief. The Ramayana and Mahabharata, India's foundational epics, come to life in stone panels. Scenes of battle, meditation, dance, and devotion unfold like ancient cinema. One iconic image shows Ravana lifting Mount Kailash to impress Shiva, his arms straining under the mountain's weight. The scale and emotion captured in these carvings rival any art form, anywhere. Inside, the inner sanctum houses a massive Shiva linga, the abstract symbol of cosmic energy. Even the ceilings are sculpted with lotus motifs, symbolic of purity and spiritual awakening. But Kailasa is more than artistry. It's sacred geometry in action. The layout adheres to Vastu Shastra, the ancient Indian system of architecture, aligning the temple with cosmic directions to optimize spiritual energy. North is associated with wealth, south with liberation, and east, the temple's entrance, with the rising sun and new beginnings. Scholars have long debated how such precision was achieved. Some suggest the use of dyes and chalk lines to plan carvings. Others propose full-scale clay models or wooden templates. Yet none fully explain the symmetrical complexity visible in the temple. While the artisans remain unnamed, their legacy has become immortal. In fact, Kailasa inspired generations of temple architecture across India, especially during the Chalukya and later Maratha periods. Even Mughal emperors, known more for Islamic architecture, sent emissaries to marvel at it. But the temple's story also includes struggle. As centuries passed, the Ellora site was gradually abandoned. With changing dynasties and religious shifts, patronage declined. Nature crept in. Parts of the caves suffered erosion, while others were defaced or damaged during invasions. And yet, unlike so many ancient temples lost forever, Kailasa survived, not just intact, but radiating purpose. When British officers stumbled upon the site in the 19th century, they were stunned. Victorian artists began sketching and publishing their findings in European journals, sparking global fascination. Archaeologists have since spent decades studying the site, yet new discoveries still emerge. In recent years, modern 3D mapping and laser scanning have revealed hidden chambers and structural anomalies, raising new questions. Were these unfinished shrines, secret meditation cells, or simply experiments carved and abandoned? Even more intriguing are the acoustic properties of the temple. Certain chambers carry chants with exceptional resonance. Some believe the temple was acoustically engineered for rituals, designed so that mantras could reverberate through stone and soul alike. Kailasa is not alone at Ellora. Nearby caves include Buddhist monasteries and Jain temples, carved in peaceful coexistence, showing that Ellora was once a spiritual crossroads, a sanctuary for seekers of many paths. Today, the Kailasa temple remains a living monument. Pilgrims still offer prayers. Festivals like Mahashivaratri draw thousands. And despite centuries of change, the temple continues to function, not just as a historical relic, but as a house of faith. It is perhaps one of the most awe-inspiring examples of what humans can achieve when their tools are guided by spirit. To visit Kailasa is to feel small, not diminished, but humbled. Because here, in this mountain-turned temple, stone breathes. Next, from India's mountain temple, we cross west to the banks of the Euphrates, where a Roman-era temple once flourished in a city swallowed by sand. Like and subscribe. Imagine a city so cosmopolitan that you could hear Greek, Aramaic, Latin and Persian on a single street. A city where temples to Zeus, Bel and Mithra stood side by side with one of the oldest known Christian churches and an elaborately painted synagogue. Then imagine that entire city vanishing, buried beneath sand for over 1,700 years until it was accidentally rediscovered. This is the story of Dura, Europos, and within it, the Temple of Bel, one of the most enigmatic and multicultural sanctuaries of the ancient world. Dura, Europos sat on a cliff above the Euphrates River in what is now eastern Syria. It was founded around 300 BCE by the Seleucid Empire, the Greek successor state of Alexander the Great's empire. Later, it came under Parthian control. and eventually the Romans captured it in the 2nd century CE. As a frontier city, it stood at the literal edge of imperial influence, a melting pot where East met West, and where people of different faiths, languages, and customs lived, traded, and worshipped together. The Temple of Bel, constructed during the 1st century CE, became a centerpiece of this multicultural tapestry. Bel was the chief deity of Palmyra, a city further west, whose influence extended deep into the desert. Though rooted in Mesopotamian tradition, Bel's worship in Dura took on Roman and Hellenistic features. His temple layout included a large courtyard surrounded by rooms for ritual and gatherings, a design reminiscent of older Mesopotamian temples. Yet the columns, pediments, and spatial proportions revealed Greek and Roman influence. It was architecture that spoke several languages at once. The walls of the temple were once painted with divine processions and celestial beings. The sanctuary may have also contained a statue of Bel, though none has survived. Inscriptions were found in Palmyrene, a dialect of Aramaic, as well as Greek and Latin, evidence of a congregation that crossed linguistic and cultural lines. But the glory of Dura Europos was not to last. In the year 256 CE, the city was besieged by the Sasanian Empire, which sought to reclaim territory from the Romans. The defenders, mostly Roman soldiers and local auxiliaries, resorted to desperate measures, including one of the earliest examples of chemical warfare ever recorded. In one of the siege tunnels, archaeologists later found the remains of 20 Roman soldiers, suffocated by burning sulfur and bitumen lit by Sasanian attackers. Despite these efforts, the city fell. The Sasanians razed key buildings, including temples and fortifications. Dura was never rebuilt. Slowly, the desert reclaimed it, burying its walls beneath layers of silt and time. More than 1,600 years later, in the 1920s, British troops stationed in the region stumbled upon painted wall fragments. This led to full-scale excavations by Yale University and the Académie des Inscriptions et Belles-Lettres of France. What they unearthed stunned the world. Entire religious structures nearly intact, including the Temple of Bel, a Mithraeum dedicated to the Persian god Mithras, a synagogue with vibrant biblical murals, and one of the earliest Christian house churches known to history. In the Temple of Bel, archaeologists discovered fragments of altars, carved reliefs, and dozens of inscriptions. While many statues were lost or looted in antiquity, the layout of the temple revealed its dual function, as both a sacred site and a gathering place. Its central courtyard likely hosted public rituals, while inner rooms were reserved for priests or oracles. The richness of Dura Europos changed how we understood ancient religious coexistence. Here was a city where Jews, pagans, Christians, and other sects lived not just in proximity, but in relative harmony, at least until war tore them apart. But history repeated itself. In the 2010s, during the Syrian civil war, the site of Dura Europos came under threat once again. Satellite images captured extensive looting, with hundreds of illegal excavation pits dotting the landscape. Reports confirmed the destruction of ancient walls and the black market trafficking of priceless artifacts. Though some of the temple's artifacts had been stored in museums decades earlier, parts of the site, left exposed, were heavily damaged. The Temple of Bel, once a symbol of religious convergence, became a symbol of cultural loss. Yet all is not lost. Thanks to modern technology, teams of scholars have digitally mapped Dura Europos, creating 3D reconstructions of the Temple of Bel and surrounding areas. These models, based on excavation data, allow students and researchers to virtually explore the temple's corridors, read its inscriptions, and even simulate the view from its altar as if time stood still. In this sense, Dura Europos continues to teach us. It reminds us that borders are not always barriers, and that faith can flourish in unlikely places. That even amid empires and conquests, there were moments of peace, tolerance, and shared humanity. And that, when tragedy strikes, memory and meaning can still be preserved, not just in stone, but in story. Today, efforts are underway to further digitize and document Syria's threatened heritage sites. The Temple of Bel, while scarred, is not forgotten. Its name echoes in archives, in classrooms, in museum collections, and now on screens across the world. Next, from the desert's edge, we return to the Cambodian forest, where a pyramid, unlike any other, rises from the jungle floor. It was once the heart of a rival capital, and then, like Dura, it disappeared. Deep in the northern forests of Cambodia, hidden beneath a canopy of green and whispers of time, stands a structure unlike anything else in Southeast Asia. Massive, tiered, and solitary, it rises like a stone staircase to the sky. This is Prasat Tom, the central temple pyramid of Koh Ker. For a brief but intense moment in history, just 16 years, this forest city was the capital of the mighty Khmer Empire. It wasn't meant to last, but what was built here endures. In the year 928 CE, King Jayavarman IV broke with centuries of tradition. Rather than ruling from the long-established capital at Angkor, he moved the center of power to this remote region in what is now Preah Vihear province. Why? Some scholars believe Jayavarman IV was never meant to rule. He may have seized power through lineage on his mother's side, but his rivals in Angkor were strong. Rather than fight within the court, he chose to relocate it, claiming spiritual authority and building a new capital entirely from scratch. And what a capital he built. Over 40 temple structures stretch across more than 80 square kilometers of forest. Unlike the grand enclosures of Angkor, Koh Ker's temples were arranged in a linear pattern, connected by wide roads and ceremonial barays, man-made reservoirs reflecting the heavens above. At the center was Prasat Tom. This 7-tiered sandstone pyramid rises over 30 meters, making it one of the tallest pre-modern buildings in Cambodia. At its summit stood a massive lingam, a cylindrical stone representing Shiva, the god of destruction and renewal. According to inscriptions, the lingam was cast in gold, measured nearly 4 meters in height, and stood inside a shrine known as the Chok Gargyar. From here, Shiva's divine energy was believed to radiate across the empire. But this wasn't just religious posturing, it was political strategy. By building the largest lingam shrine in the empire's history, Jayavarman IV wasn't just worshipping a god. He was declaring himself the Devaraja, God King. His rule was divinely sanctioned, his authority cosmic. The artistic style of Koh Ker reflects this ambition. The sculptures here are larger, more expressive, more violent. Gods are shown in motion, leaping, fighting, dancing. Some of the most iconic Khmer sculptures were made here. A 10-armed dancing Shiva, a massive Garuda mid-flight, and a hauntingly powerful duel of monkeys from the Ramayana. Many of these statues, sadly, no longer stand at the site. Koh Ker has suffered greatly from looting. During the Cambodian Civil War and the Khmer Rouge era, the site was abandoned and mined. Landmines kept archaeologists and visitors away for decades, preserving the site, but also making it dangerous. Meanwhile, looters exploited the isolation. Using chainsaws and trucks, they cut entire statues from pedestals and smuggled them out of the jungle. Today, many of Koh Ker's masterpieces sit in Western museums, auction houses, and private collections. Some have been returned, but others remain the subject of legal battles and cultural diplomacy. Standing at Koh Ker today feels like walking through a ghost kingdom. There are no crowds here, no long lines, no selfie sticks, no polished interpretive signs, just broken lintels, half-buried steps, and the occasional sound of cicadas. Trees grow through doorways, birds nest in collapsed sanctuaries, and always, above it all, Prasat Tom watches, silent and resolute. Climbing the pyramid is an eerie experience. The jungle grows thicker as you ascend. The air thins. The stone grows hot under the sun. By the final tier, You can see across the treetops, just as the God King once did. And yet, Koh Ker was abandoned almost as quickly as it rose. After Jayavarman IV's death in 941 CE, the capital returned to Angkor under his son, Harshavarman II. The jungle began its slow reclamation. Without a royal court to maintain them, the temples fell into disrepair. Monsoon rains eroded foundations. Lintels cracked. The giant lingam at the top of Prasat Tom vanished, possibly stolen, possibly destroyed. For nearly 1,000 years, the forest kept Koh Ker's secrets. Only in the 19th and 20th centuries did French explorers and archaeologists begin mapping the site. Restoration efforts have since cleared some areas, but much remains shrouded in vegetation. The Cambodian government, with support from UNESCO and other heritage organizations, continues to clear mines and protect the ruins from modern threats. Despite its brief tenure, Koh Ker left a lasting legacy. Its sculptures influenced later temple art at Angkor. Its linear city design shows a unique urban vision, and its bold attempt to relocate the imperial center reminds us that history isn't always written by the winners, it's written in stone. Next, from Cambodia's jungle pyramid, we descend underground, literally. Beneath the Maltese town of Paola lies a Neolithic complex so old it predates the Egyptian pyramids. Like and subscribe. Beneath the Maltese town of Paola, beneath sidewalks and homes and the hum of daily life, there is silence. A silence carved by hands that lived over 5,000 years ago. This is the Hypogeum of Ħal Saflieni, one of the oldest and most mysterious underground temples ever discovered. Part sanctuary, part necropolis. It's a labyrinth of chambers hidden beneath earth, sealed for millennia, and still keeping its secrets. Discovered entirely by accident in 1902, the Hypogeum was unearthed when construction workers cut into its ceiling while laying foundations. What they found was unlike anything archaeologists had seen in Europe. 3 levels of chambers, staircases, altars, and burial spaces, all carved directly into Malta's soft limestone. No tools of metal, no wheels, no writing. And yet, the builders of this place created an architectural masterpiece. The earliest level dates back to 4000 BCE, placing the Hypogeum among the oldest freestanding religious structures in the world. Older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. Over the next 1,500 years, its builders continued excavating downward. The final level reaches more than 10 meters deep. But what was it for? At first glance, the Hypogeum appears to be a tomb. Archaeologists uncovered the remains of over 7,000 individuals, some arranged in fetal positions, others interred with beads, pottery, and carved figurines. Yet the layout and acoustics suggest more than just burial. The middle level contains the famous oracle room, a chamber with a corbelled ceiling carved to exact acoustic specifications. A voice spoken here resonates throughout the complex. And not just any voice, only low male voices produce the effect. Researchers believe this chamber was used for ritual chanting or prophecy, where a single voice could simulate divine communication. Nearby, a carved niche known as the Holy of Holies seems to be the focal point of the entire complex. From certain spots, light once reflected onto it through cleverly aligned shafts. Ceiling patterns painted in red ochre spirals, still visible after 5 millennia, are thought to represent cycles of life and death, or the movement of stars and planets. One of the most iconic discoveries was the Sleeping Lady, a small figurine of a reclining female figure with abundant curves, resting on what appears to be a stone couch. Was she a priestess? A goddess? A symbol of fertility and rebirth? No one knows. But her expression, serene, powerful, has haunted scholars for over a century. This figurine is not alone. Dozens of Neolithic statuettes were found, often of exaggerated female forms. Some believe the Hypogeum was a temple to a mother goddess, a symbol of earth, death, and renewal. Others argue it was a liminal space, guiding souls from the world of the living into earth, into silence. And what about those who built it? We know little about them. The temple period people of Malta left behind no written records. But they built megalithic temples above ground too: Ġgantija Ħaġar Qim, Menajdra. They aligned structures with solstices. They carved spirals and animal motifs. They transported massive stones without the wheel or metal tools. And then, around 2500 BCE, they vanished. The Hypogeum was sealed, deliberately. Chambers were blocked. Entrances were hidden. For over 4,000 years, no one entered. It was as if the people who created it wanted it forgotten. When archaeologists entered in the 20th century, the chambers were still intact. Inside, they found carved doorways, stairs leading nowhere, hidden niches, and human bones laid out in careful arrangements. Some skulls bore signs of elongation, leading to wild speculation about alien rituals and lost races, though most scholars agree these are rare natural variations. Modern science has revealed even more. In the oracle room, researchers measured infrasound frequencies that can trigger altered states of consciousness. Visitors often report strange feelings, disorientation, emotional surges, awe. Whether this was intentional design or coincidence, the effect is powerful. Today, the Hypogeum is UNESCO listed and strictly protected. Only a few visitors per day are allowed inside. Lights are dimmed, humidity is carefully controlled, and photos are prohibited to prevent microbial damage. To descend into the Hypogeum is to leave the modern world behind. The air is cool, the walls breathe silence, and every echo feels sacred. You move not through architecture, but through belief, through stone, shaped by ritual and memory. The Hypogeum's builders must have understood the land intimately. They carved chambers in patterns that mirrored the above-ground megalithic temples. Some researchers suggest a cosmological design. The architecture follows symbolic alignments, perhaps with the stars or lunar cycles. But the deeper meaning is obscured, lost with the language of its creators. One of the most mysterious aspects of the site is its near-perfect preservation. The sealing of the Hypogeum may not have been just practical. It may have been ceremonial. Perhaps this was an act of reverence, a sacred burial of the temple itself, as if the structure had fulfilled its purpose. Or perhaps it was an act of desperation during a cultural collapse. The thousands buried here suggest a central role in society, perhaps reserved for elders, priests, or entire family lineages. Some chambers even show signs of use as ossuaries, spaces where bones were carefully relocated and stacked. This recycling of remains points to complex funerary rituals, where the dead were not just buried, but tended to over generations. Tools found in the Hypogeum include obsidian blades, shell pendants, and beads made from imported stones. These reveal a society that was part of wider networks of trade, exchanging goods with Sicily and perhaps even mainland Europe. Though isolated, Malta was not alone. The Hypogeum is also a rare window into prehistoric acoustic engineering. Studies conducted by archaeologists and sound engineers have confirmed that the resonance frequency of the oracle room, around 110 Hz, amplifies sound while influencing brainwave activity. This could induce meditative or trance-like states, enhancing religious experience. Whether by chance or intention, the effect is striking. And yet, the site still guards secrets. In the early years of its excavation, record-keeping was inconsistent. Artifacts were lost or moved without proper documentation. Some stories, even rumors, persist. Visitors speak of strange echoes, shadowy figures, and feelings of being watched. While these are easily explained by acoustics and suggestion, the Hypogeum continues to fascinate not just scientists, but storytellers and mystics. In recent years, Malta has invested in preserving the site with cutting-edge technology. A full-scale digital model allows virtual tours and scholarly analysis without disturbing the fragile environment. Researchers scan every chamber with laser imaging to detect microfractures, ensuring that future generations can continue to study this ancient marvel. And still, more questions remain than answers. Why did this Neolithic society disappear? Why did they devote so much effort to a site beneath the ground? And what do these carvings, statues, and echoing walls tell us about their view of life, death, and the cosmos? Some mysteries are meant to remain half-lit. For those who walk the chambers of the Hypogeum today, the experience is more than historical. It's emotional. You feel time press in from all sides. The walls, though silent, seem to remember. And in that whispering darkness, our ancestors are still speaking, if only we listen closely enough. The Hypogeum is more than stone. It is a conversation with the ancient dead, a dialogue across 5 millennia. Next, from the depths of Malta's sacred underworld, we rise nearly 200 meters into the sky, where a forgotten king built a palace atop a colossal rock. The fortress of Sigiriya awaits. Like and subscribe. In the heart of Sri Lanka's dry zone, a colossal rock formation rises nearly 200 meters above the surrounding plains. At first glance, it appears to be just a geological marvel, an ancient magma plug eroded over millennia. But as you approach, you begin to see traces of a lost civilization. Staircases, frescoes, enigmatic lion paws carved from stone. This is Sigiriya, a sky fortress, a royal palace, and a Buddhist monastery, all built on top of a rock. Sigiriya's story begins in the 5th century CE, with the rise of a controversial king named Kassapa I. The son of King Datusena, Kassapa seized the throne by force, deposing and eventually murdering his father. But his claim was insecure. His brother, rightful heir Moggallana, fled to India, vowing to return. Kassapa, fearing vengeance, decided to build a fortress no one could conquer. He chose Sigiriya, a towering monolith surrounded by jungle and marsh. At its summit, he built a lavish palace complex, terraces, water gardens, cisterns, and pavilions. Halfway up the rock, artists painted frescoes of celestial maidens, their expressions soft, their jewelry gleaming, their beauty timeless. Further up, a massive gateway shaped like a lion, the Lion Gate, guarded the final ascent. Today, only the paws remain, but they hint at the grandeur once envisioned. At ground level, Kassapa commissioned elaborate pleasure gardens. These included symmetrical pools, fountains, some still functional today, and boulder gardens. The entire complex shows remarkable planning, aligned with cardinal points, blending landscape with architecture. But Kassapa's reign was brief. In 495 CE, Moggallana returned with an army. Kassapa, attempting to flank the enemy, misjudged terrain and became isolated. His army fled, and the king, defeated and dishonored, took his own life. After his death, Sigiriya was abandoned as a royal city and became a Buddhist monastery. Monks lived and meditated in caves around the base, using the site until at least the 14th century. Over time, the jungle swallowed it whole. Rediscovered in the 19th century, Sigiriya has since been restored and recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Today, it is one of Sri Lanka's most iconic landmarks, an intersection of power, art, myth, and history. Sigiriya is not merely a ruin, it is a coded manuscript written in stone, a masterpiece of urban planning far ahead of its time. Archaeologists marvel at the sophistication of its hydraulic systems, underground canals, gravity-fed pools, and rainwater reservoirs that sustained the site year-round, even in dry seasons. The fountains in the lower gardens, cut from limestone and pressurized by underground channels, still work after 15 centuries. These water gardens are the oldest known in South Asia. They were laid out in geometric precision, with long pools, artificial islands, and terraced embankments, suggesting inspiration not only from Indian, but possibly Persian garden traditions. Some scholars interpret the design as a symbolic recreation of Alakamanda, the mythical city of the gods, bringing heaven to earth. Halfway up the rock face is another marvel, the mirror wall. Once so highly polished that the king could see his reflection in it, today It bears graffiti from ancient visitors. These inscriptions, written in early Sinhalese, date as far back as the 8th century CE. They include poems, praise of the painted maidens, and reflections on the climb. In fact, these are among the earliest known examples of Sinhala poetry, revealing how deeply the site captured imaginations even centuries after Kasapa's reign. And those painted maidens, known as the Sigiriya frescoes, they were likely depictions of apsaras, celestial nymphs, or perhaps representations of Kasapa's court women or consorts. Once believed to have numbered over 500, only about 24 survive today. Their naturalistic forms and radiant colours demonstrate a high level of artistic refinement, unparalleled in the region at the time. Sigiriya's design integrates military strategy, aesthetics, religious symbolism, and personal ego. Kasapa's sky palace was not just a refuge from war, it was a monument to his ambition. Every stone terrace, frescoed chamber, and trickling fountain was a declaration. I am not just a king, I am divine. Yet for all its grandeur, Sigiriya was a response to fear. The rock offered protection, but not enough. Kasapa's suicide, by sword, on the battlefield, marked the end of his dream. His brother Moggallana reclaimed the throne and returned the capital to Anuradhapura. Sigiriya faded from royal memory. Monks took over the site, transforming palatial rooms into meditation cells. Caves around the base were inscribed with Buddhist symbols. Life slowed, the jungle returned, and eventually, even the monks moved on. Even after centuries of abandonment, Sigiriya never entirely disappeared. Local folklore preserved fragments of its story. It was said to be the home of giants, of gods, of kings cursed by the heavens. The rock was sacred, untouchable, looming above the surrounding plains like a monument to forgotten power. When British officials arrived in the 19th century, their interest was initially casual. But as they began clearing paths, recording structures, and studying the inscriptions, it became clear. This was not just a fortress. It was a lost world. Excavations in the 20th century unearthed not only royal architecture, but remnants of everyday life: grinding stones, storage pots, tools, and jewelry. These objects suggest that Sigiriya was a living, breathing city where artisans, guards, monks, and labourers coexisted beneath a king's gaze. The lion itself, once a full sculpture carved into the cliff, was intended to project dominance. Visitors would ascend a staircase through the beast's open jaws, symbolically passing into the domain of a ruler whose strength was both political and spiritual. Even though only the lion's massive paws survive today, they remain one of the most iconic features of Sri Lankan heritage. Recent theories have reinterpreted Kasapa's rule. Once portrayed as a usurper and parricide, some historians now view him as a visionary, a leader who tried to carve a new identity for the island through architecture and symbolism. In this view, Sigiriya wasn't just defensive, it was expressive, poetic, a canvas for imperial imagination. And what of the rock itself? Sigiriya's geological history adds another layer of mystery. Formed from hardened magma after a volcano collapsed millions of years ago, the rock resisted erosion while the surrounding plains wore away. Its exposed flanks became canvases, its summit, a stage. Nature gave Kasapa a pedestal, and he used it to etch his name into eternity. The climb to the summit is not easy. Steep iron staircases cling to the cliff. Winds whip your face. Below, jungle stretches for miles. But at the top, ruins of the palace remain. Low stone walls, water tanks carved into the bedrock, and views that stretch all the way to the horizon. It's not hard to imagine a king standing here, surveying his world, and then choosing to fight rather than flee when that world turned against him. Sigiriya's broader cultural significance also lies in how it straddles two worlds, the secular and the sacred. While the upper terraces were designed as royal courts and pleasure palaces, the lower zones transitioned into monastic spaces. These included meditation caves, dripstone shelters, and Brahmi inscriptions dating to even before Kasapa's reign. In this way, Sigiriya represents a continuum of use, transformed by each generation, yet always revered. The monks who later inhabited Sigiriya added their own architectural flourishes. They carved shallow basins to collect rainwater for ritual cleansing. They inscribed stone with prayers and verses, and they used the quiet grandeur of the site to cultivate detachment, a spiritual retreat literally above the world. Even today, local villagers still climb the rock not just for tourism, but for pilgrimage. The site has become a symbol of national pride, spiritual depth, and architectural brilliance. It's been featured in documentaries, novels, and even political speeches. And as researchers use drones, ground-penetrating radar, and 3D scanning to learn more, the story of Sigiriya keeps evolving. There are still debates about its origin. Was Sigiriya Kasapa's grand throne or a repurposed religious site? Was the lion motif original or added later? Were the frescoes part of a wider artistic program, now lost to erosion and time? These questions don't diminish the wonder, they enhance it. Because what Sigiriya ultimately offers is a reminder. Power fades, stones remain. And from those stones, centuries later, we can still reconstruct the hopes, fears, and dreams of a man who tried to defy history. Across 1 hour and thousands of years, we've walked among the bones of forgotten empires, through jungle-choked sanctuaries, cliffside monasteries, mountain-carved shrines, and cities swallowed by time. What unites these sacred spaces isn't just grandeur, it's resilience. They were built for gods, for kings, for the dead and divine. Though many were abandoned, buried, or destroyed, they still speak to us. Through stone and silence, they tell stories of faith, ambition, and humanity's enduring desire to reach for something greater. These temples were once pilgrimage sites. Today they're monuments of memory, reminders of civilizations that rose, fell, and were rediscovered by later generations. They teach us that even the greatest achievements are vulnerable to change. But they also show that legacy isn't measured solely by survival, but by the impact a place has on those who witness it. In each abandoned temple we explored, there was a lesson. In the roots-wrapping Prohm, we saw nature's quiet takeover, a reminder that the earth always reclaims what we build. In Lalibela's sunken churches, we glimpsed faith carved in stone, proof that devotion can move mountains, or in this case, carve them. In Baalbek's columns, we saw empire's ambition, the desire to touch the heavens and claim dominion over the cosmos. In Malta's megaliths, we found prehistoric ingenuity, a civilization that built without metal, without writing, but with profound purpose. In Konark's chariot, we witnessed time's passage, a temple that doesn't just honor the sun, but moves with it. In Kailasa, we marveled at vision made manifest, a mountain transformed into a temple through sheer will and devotion. In Dura, Europos, we saw faith's coexistence, a city where many beliefs lived side by side until war tore them apart. In Koh Ker, we discovered ambition's brevity, a capital built in defiance, abandoned in defeat, yet enduring in memory. In the Hypogeum, we descended into silence, a space carved not for the living, but for the journey between life and death. In Sigiriya, we climbed toward fear, a fortress built on paranoia, yet beautiful in its desperation. All of them tell us, civilizations may fall, but art, architecture, and belief endure. These forgotten sanctuaries challenge us. They ask us to remember. They demand that we look beyond the surface, to see not just ruins but the people who built them, the dreams they carried, the gods they worshipped, and the legacies they left behind. They remind us that we are not the first to wonder at the stars, to question our place in the universe, to build monuments to something greater than ourselves, and we will not be the last. So before we part, take a moment to reflect. Which temple moved you most? Which story will stay with you? Which stone whispered something you needed to hear? Let us know in the comments. And if this journey inspired you, give the video a like and subscribe. It helps us keep exploring, keep uncovering, and keep sharing the wonders of the past with the world. Because these aren't just forgotten sanctuaries, they're reminders that nothing is ever truly forgotten, as long as someone remembers to tell the story. Thank you for joining us on this expedition through history's lost temples. Until next time, keep your curiosity alive, keep seeking the hidden wonders of our world, and never stop asking, what else have we forgotten?